Cowboys don't have it better than we do. Todd Archer, ESPN NFL Nation reporter, covering the Cowboys since 2003. Well, I didn't think we would get here, but we got here. How did we get here, Todd?
You know, Jerry Jones has a line that he likes to use where he says, don't let your money get mad. I think his money got mad in this situation when he wasn't able to work out the contract directly with Micah Parsons. There were no negotiations after that, no offers sent from the team to the agent, nothing from the agent back to the team. And Micah's side made one last push at the start of the week or the end of last week to say, hey, can we get going on this? Let's do a deal. And Jerry flat out told him, no, you're playing on the fifth-year option, and then we'll see what happens after the season. We'll franchise tag you. That kind of set all the balls in motion towards this trade with Green Bay. A number of suitors that we were told were involved. The Cowboys were kind of limited to who they could be because that team needed cap room. That team needed a defensive player they could get in return. And it came together pretty quickly once the Packers were able to come to the agreement with Parsons on the long-term contract.
But, Todd, let's go back to March. If you know you're not going to sign him, at least create some leverage, a bidding war going into the draft. That's what I don't understand. If he does that, then maybe I understand the rationale. But still, you traded away, one of the 5 best defensive players in the game, a trajectory for the Hall of Fame. You get Kenny Clark, who's over 30, and you get 2 late first-round picks more than likely. I just don't understand how Jerry can, with a straight face, say the team is better now, today, than it was yesterday.
Well, they're better for the playoffs. He didn't say when they were going to make the playoffs, I guess, right? If it would be this year or not. But I asked Jerry that question. If you knew in the beginning of April that you had this pushback on the agreement that you and Micah had from the agent, why didn't you make the deal before the draft when you had the opportunity to help your team more theoretically in 2025 by getting a player and multiple draft picks as well? So, and his answer was convoluted and Jerry-like, and I really don't know what it was. But Stephen Jones said, well, the draft is in April too. This was the beginning of the month and the end of the month. You had at least 3 weeks where you could have worked that out and gotten to a deal. They chose not to do it. They went this route. And in their mind, this is the best that they could do right now. And they knew that if Micah Parsons wasn't going to play week 1 against Philadelphia, that it would have been a situation that would have been onerous for the entire year. And they didn't want to put Brian Schottenheimer in part in that situation.
But we've talked about this before. If the Cowboys have a traditional general manager who has power, who has teeth, do we get to this point in this situation where you're parting with Micah Parsons?
Well, I think in that situation, the owner says, hey, man, too bad, work it out. That's what the owner would say, because you can't convince an owner who's not the general manager that team would be better without Micah Parsons that particular season. So that's where the everybody who says Jerry needs to fire the GM, well, this is the case where the GM didn't have an owner telling him what to do either.
I just wonder the role that Stephen Jones played in this, because Jerry loves to be a buddy to the players. Is Stephen? Are Stephen's fingerprints on this that he might have been the one that convinced Jerry to trade away Micah Parsons?
I wouldn't cast the blame on Stephen Jones. Jerry told us that this was a unanimous decision from everybody in the organization that they talked to, including some players that are on the leadership council when we met yesterday. Now, I get it. It's easy to say, of course, everybody's going to tell Jerry, yeah, let's go ahead and do this if that's what Jerry wanted to do.
Wait, but there were players on the Cowboys who co-signed on this to move on from Micah Parsons.
That is what Jerry told us yesterday, that they have a leadership council, players were contacted, and they understood it as well. Whether they were okay with it, maybe a distinction without difference, but they were understanding why the Cowboys had to make the move. And look, there have been teammates in Micah's past, and even probably some in the present, that have been annoyed, might be the best word, by some of the things that he's done. And they all might be little things to some degree. Not putting Dak Prescott in as one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL on your podcast. Not working the hardest on the practice field. Showing up to the game the other night, eating nachos, lying down on the medical table. All of that stuff might be little stuff, but when you start adding all of that stuff together, I think teammates, again, for sure some former guys, were just annoyed at times by Micah. Great, but they always understood his production on the field is what mattered most.
Thank you, Todd. I know you're busy. Thanks for joining us.
You got it. Thanks, Dan.
Todd Archer, ESPN NFL Nation reporter covering the Cowboys since 2003.